Hello everyone, welcome back to Cliff Soccer Zone. Today we're going to do a mini review of Arsenal's defeat to West Ham, as well as do a mini preview of Arsenal's matchup against Nottingham Forest at the City Ground. So going into Arsenal's game against West Ham, Arsenal were looking to capitalize on Liverpool dropping two vital points at Villa Park against Aston Villa in the midweek. And basically, you could tell right away that once the ball was kicked, that the Arsenal players were extremely nervous, and obviously they knew that they needed to win that game if they wanted to have any chance of catching Liverpool, who have obviously had a tremendous season so far, and the fact that they've only lost one game, which happens to be against Nottingham Forest, by the way. So basically, Arsenal needed to capitalize on the fact that Liverpool didn't get those 2 points against Aston Villa. The thing is that you could tell right away how nervous the Arsenal players looked in that game against West Ham, as essentially basically the players weren't making runs that they needed to make. They look lost in terms of being able to come up with ideas. Odegaard, even though unfortunately he's gotten a lot of slack, was actually one of the few players that were actually creating chances. It's just that no one was there to put those chances in the back of the net, which unfortunately, as much as we were hoping that after Mikel Merino's performance against Leicester, where he scored 2 goals coming off the bench, one with a great header from an Nwaneri cross into the box, and then Trossard's cross into the box, finding Merino at the back post as he hit the ball in the back of the net, which with what appeared to be a very good striker's finish, even though, as we all know, he's not really a striker. But the thing is with Merino is he does make those runs into the box. But the thing is that West Ham knew that and obviously did their homework and made sure that they weren't allowing Merino to have a free path to make those runs that he is actually good at, as he had done several times for the Spanish national team in the Euros, scoring the late goal against Germany to advance them into the next round, as well as what he did in his career at Real Sociedad, where he was known for making these runs into the box and then being able to finish these chances at a pretty high rate, especially for a midfielder, someone who wasn't necessarily you would expect to be the best goal scorer in the world, but he was known for making these runs. But as I said, West Ham knew that and basically made sure that Merino wasn't going to have any of these paths into free runs into the box to make his runs, and essentially eliminated him from the game. And essentially because of that, there were lots of times where, as I said, Odegaard would create a chance, and he created 4 big chances in the game, which amongst all of the players in this past match week, he actually created the most chances. Was tied for the most chances created amongst anyone in the Premier League in that particular match week. But the thing is that that's actually not what's being talked about. It's being talked about how he didn't necessarily make the runs he shouldn't have made, which I kind of agree with that aspect, that he didn't make the runs. But the thing is that in terms of that, he's really a chance creator. That's his strongest attribute, is creating chances, as well as leading the press, especially when Kai Havertz is healthy. Both Odegaard and Havertz run the press very effectively in terms of making the opposition defense make plays they don't want to make and be able to take the ball away and create chances from there. But essentially, the fact that no one was there to finish off the chances is unfortunately something that we all knew was coming, especially when you have a front three of Trossard, Merino, and Nwaneri, who you have a not natural striker. You have a 17-year-old who, yes, has been very good in terms of making his progression from the youth team into the first team, and has had several extremely good performances. But the thing is that you can't really rely on a 17-year-old for extended periods of time unless you're talking about the freak athletes, the Messis, the Ronaldos, who, and to be honest with you, at 17, Ronaldo wasn't really doing this at 17. Messi was to a slight degree. The only person who you could really think of has been consistently able to play at that high of a level at that age is probably Lamine Yamal, which is why, at least in my opinion, I think it's ridiculous of Arsenal fans to even try to compare Nwaneri to Yamal at this point, considering Yamal was starting in the Euros for the Spanish national team at 16 years old. I'm sorry, that's just incredible. Nwaneri's a great player, but he's not anything close to that level yet. He can potentially get to that level, but I still think it's too premature to at least make those sort of comparisons, in my opinion, at least. But the thing is, as I said, the chances were being created, but eventually it got to the point where it seemed like the Arsenal players, even eventually Odegaard, were running out of ideas of how are we going to create these chances, and who, if we do create these chances, who's going to score those chances? And basically the big momentum shift right before halftime, Aaron Wan-Bissaka, Ricardo Calafiori doesn't close down on Aaron Wan-Bissaka and allows him to make the cross into the box, and then you have Gabriel, Saliba, Rice, and Partey leaving Jared Bowen unmarked and allowing him to make a free run into the box and heading the ball in the back of the net just before halftime, which essentially killed a lot of any momentum that Arsenal had, and they weren't really able to recover it since then. And then basically, as we go later into the game as well, Miles Lewis-Skelly comes on as a sub, loses the ball from Mohamed Kudus, and basically panics. Arsenal are already down 1-0. He doesn't want to allow Kudus to be able to get the chance to make it 2-0, and takes him out, denying Kudus of a goal-scoring opportunity, which, unfortunately, even though the previous incident that happened with Miles Lewis-Skelly getting a red card was never a red card and was later overturned, this incident was a red card. As much as I wish it wasn't, it was. And you can't really, the thing is that I understand Miles Lewis-Skelly panicking in that moment and making the tackle, but to be honest with you, he probably should have just let Kudus go and hope that David Raya or Saliba or someone else was going to be able to catch up to Kudus. Or, for example, just because Kudus gets a goal-scoring opportunity doesn't mean he's going to score that goal-scoring opportunity. But again, I understand the panic, especially as an 18-year-old who isn't necessarily experienced in that regard, where he thinks, okay, I'm going to make the tackle and be able to get him and hopefully stop him from scoring what would have been the clinching goal, 2-0. West Ham would have been, Arsenal already probably didn't have much of a chance, but that would have been the final nail in the coffin. And unfortunately, at least what ended up happening, Lewis-Skelly actually put the final nail in the coffin by getting the red card, getting sent off, and Arsenal being down to 10 men. And there were some chances that were created after that game, after that incident, but after that, it was essentially over the game. And then, as you know, that has essentially, at least in my opinion at least, ended the title race. So there is still mathematically the chance that if Liverpool were to slip up, I don't see it happening, but mathematically it is still possible. But in my opinion, I think the title race is over, and it's now Liverpool's to lose in that essence of everything.